Hey, you like cars? Back again, okay? You know what time this is. It's a CarQuicks Podcast. Let's go ahead and get the introductories out the way. Episode 75, CarQuicks Podcast. Cameron Biggs, your host. I'm back again. It's a nice night, nice day. But how are you doing out there, okay? How are y'all doing? The family, the friends, loved ones, significant others. How are you doing? Glad you could join me again. Like I said, it's Cameron Biggs, your host, the CarQuicks Podcast, the world-known, world-renowned, the place where you can trust the name, okay? You can trust this news. You know it's coming from a reliable source, okay? But let's just dive into what's going on this week. There's a couple things that were interesting. One in particular that I was like, man, there are certain times when like you see a car come out or something gets announced and you're just like, I really wish I was a multi-millionaire because some of this stuff be truly exciting. So what am I talking about? Well, first, let's talk about Renault. So if you're into cars, obviously in the US, Renault isn't really a known name, even though they're thinking about bringing them over here just, to add some more variety to what we already have. But in Europe and other parts of the world, Renault is a known name and everybody does know about them. And many years ago, they had a very well-known hot hatch, so to speak, called the Turbo RS, right? I'm going to throw up a picture of the old one in case you're watching the video. But, I mean, these always look really dope. Really crazy wide rear, fenders, flares in the back, engine in the back. I mean, it was just a really cool type of car at that time. Well, it's coming back. Now, before we get overly excited about the idea of a Turbo RS coming back, for those out there who do not like electric cars, go ahead and fast forward to the other part of this episode. Because yes, the Turbo RS is coming back. But it's coming back as an electric car because it's based on the Renault, what is it called? It's called the E5 or the E electric car they showed back in 2021. They showed this concept car, which I thought was cool looking in 2021. I was like, hey, it's a funky, cool, modern retro design. It's based on a car that was very much for city goers. It makes sense. It could be electric. I understand what they're trying to do. At least they got the design language correct, right? Like I said before, electric cars to me are not bad. If you combine the things that people are looking for, if you can kind of have some fun with it, gimmicks or not, or otherwise, they can be enjoyable, I think. Now, they are introducing this. Now, if you look at the concept for the RS Turbo, this has wide body flares, vents, cuts, diagonals. It's aggressive, okay? 500 horsepower, rear wheel drive, dual motor. There's an engine and there's a motor on each wheel in the rear, 0 to 63.5 seconds, 500 horsepower. Do not know the weight. I'm sure it won't be the lightest thing in the world, but we're talking about a hot hatch with over 500 horsepower. That's rear wheel drive, all electric, instant torque, 0 to 60 is crazy. Top speed is probably somewhere north of 150. This is a crazy combination because I can't imagine what this is like to drive. Rear wheel drive hatchbacks don't really happen, honestly. Mainly because they ain't really in market for it. But seeing this kind of makes it exciting to see what the future could hold if we were to apply those same type of ideas to more hot hatches. Listen, I'm a fan of a hatchback. So if the company's making a hatchback, I'm on board to say, okay, let's go ahead and do that because there needs to be more of them, okay? We ain't got that many. So Renault's coming back. They're thinking about doing it. They said this is destined for production. I don't know if it's in the same form or fashion I see up here on the screen. What I do know is that the old concept car they showed back in 2021, that was production ready. And the one that's coming out somewhere next year, maybe in the 2026 model year, looks exactly the same. I will say this, the likelihood of this ever coming to the US is slim to none. The only way Renault comes to the US is they're probably going to introduce one of their other more pedestrian style electric cars to this market to see what they do. I highly doubt they're going to take something that would be a $60,000-$70,000 hot hatch that's all electric and bring it here. We only really have one company doing something like that, and that's Hyundai with the Ioniq 5N. And if I'm perfectly honest, I've only ever seen one in the street. I've seen way more GT3 RSs than I've seen Ioniq 5N. So I don't even know if their sales are even warranting them to even continue doing it. Even though, kind of continuing on that path of electric kind of hatchbacks and performance EVs, Kia did announce that the redesigned 2026 Kia EV GT has been redesigned. Just more the front end. The lights they have now, I said before these lights were kind of funky. I don't know about them though. I really do feel like the previous EV6 was a better, cleaner design. These new headlights are really weird. That's all I can say. It's very funky, like kind of teardrop, very alienish type of look. It can be aggressive from certain angles, and certain angles look kind of funky. But one of the points that I was bringing out is that this year, the EV6 GT last year had 574, maybe 72 or horsepower. Now it has 641, matching the Ioniq 5N. Last year they said it did 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds. Probably this year it's probably going to either match that speed because it isn't that big of a jump, or it's going to drop it down to like 3.1. Either way, Ioniq 5N and the Kia EV6 GT both have the same amount of horsepower, and that's crazy. So yeah, you can get kind of a wagony hatchback type of performance EV with this much power. The only caveat with all of this though, and I haven't driven an Ioniq 5N, even though I really want to. I should just go to honestly, I should just go down to this Hyundai dealership down the street from my house and just walk in there and just ask them. Yo, told me the keys. I can't imagine that they're selling too many of them, but I also can imagine that they won't let anybody drive one unless you're going to buy one. So that's just the name of the game now. But it's the price tag, because an Ioniq 5N is like almost $70,000, and they're like, this Kia EV6 GT is going to be in the same realm. So when you think about the Renault RS Turbo that's coming out, you're talking about it probably being in the same price range. And the market for performance EVs depreciates horribly. We got Tesla Plaids in the $50,000 range now. That used to be $150,000+ car. So performance EVs aren't really the greatest seller, because most people that are buying EVs, I would say 99% of them are looking for something that eliminates the maintenance of a combustion engine, gasoline, and kind of the quietness of an EV, and maybe the ease of setting up, charging at their home or charging at networks like Tesla. It'll be interesting to see what Renault does as they do come to the U.S. I do think that there is some room for a different brand to come with its own heritage and its own lineage to kind of bring in some fresh eyes and fresh looks into something on here. Now, speaking about other dealerships and things like that happening, something funny happened this week. This was hilarious. Like, during the week, this video went beyond viral. So a guy, I forgot what state it was in. I feel like it was maybe in like Utah or something. Wherever it may be, a gentleman bought a Subaru Outback, an older, early 2000s, maybe late 90s Subaru Outback. Something happened with it. It wasn't to his liking. He said he was going to return the car. The dealership says, no, you can't return it. It was bought as is. You got it now. Godspeed. He said, I'm going to come back and drive it to the dealership if you don't take it back. They said, we're not doing none of that. And he stood 10 toes down on the accelerator pedal. 10 toes down on the gas, okay? Straight through the front door. Now, I laughed and said, listen, sometimes these dealerships, they be asking for folks to drive through the front window. I ain't gonna front, okay? Markups, the cost of service, things just, sometimes they just do certain things to customers where you're just like, hey, I can see how you can get that far in your rage. Unfortunately, though, regardless of whatever the car needed, you're talking about now felony charges, vehicular, endangerment. It's all bad. Okay, he got arrested clearly, and it's whatever's going to cost for the lawyer and the charges, and hopefully the dealership, isn't feeling so bad or so mad at him that they might cut him a break. But whatever the damages are, I'm sure he's got to call for the bill on that, restructuring the entire building and all the things that could have happened. Nobody got hurt. That's why we're joking about it. Nobody was hurt, killed, or anything like that. But it was just funny to see somebody really just say, yo, I'm going to drive through the front door if you don't take it back. And they said, nah, we're not going to do that. And he said, all right, watch. It came busting through there. That's when it gets back to what we talked about with pre-inspections when you're buying a car, older used cars. I do say this, though. I will put some onus on the dealership. Like, it takes two to tango. I mean, I don't know what he was complaining about. Something was wrong with the car. He bought the car. He took it somewhere. They discovered something that wasn't disclosed to him when he bought the car. He came back and you need to take it back. I mean, at the very least, dealerships could at least just say, let's look at what it is you're talking about. We're trying to have a lifelong customer. You never know. They might buy a used car from you. Maybe it's not even a car you sell. It might be a Subaru at a Acura dealership. But maybe this person likes how you took care of them and they might circle back around. It's just about building relationships. I just think dealerships now, nobody's trying to build a relationship. It's just like one and done. Here's your car. Now, I get it. Cars cost a lot. They last long. And folks ain't trying to just come back and trade it in after 5 years. Folks is like, I will see you never, never worry. Okay, I'm going to never come back and I'm going to drive this till the wheels fall off. So maybe that's part of it too. But that was just a funny story that happened on there. But getting into something that was crazy that I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast about wanting to have the funds to partake in this glorious automobile. Okay. So there's this company called, I'm going to say Boreham, Boreham, Boreham Motorworks. They're bringing back the Ford Escort RS, the MK1, the OG. The one that was used in rally racing, the one that if you followed Ford, old classic, fun sport compact cars, this is something that's been out. They're bringing it back in its totality. We're not talking about a resto mod. We're not talking about pre-production bodies and fiberglass bodies on different tubular chassis or anything like that. We're talking about blueprint accurate, VIN number approved from Ford, MK1 Escort RSs, okay? These things, and whoever this company is that's making them, these things sound nasty, okay? 296 horsepower. Now, I'm just saying that first because I know in the grand scheme of horsepower wars that we're in, 296, even my GR Corolla was 300, ain't really moving the needle on most people who are just looking at the stats and specs when 1,000 horsepower is regular to a lot of people, which is nuts. Not me, but there are some people that fall into that camp. 2.1 liter, 4-cylinder, 10,000 RPM redline, 5-speed dogleg manual. Dogleg means the first gear is kind of like down below, like it's in reverse. It's in a weird location, but you ain't going to find too many cars with a dogleg transmission, manual transmission. So on paper, I'm already like, I'm on board. Almost 300 horsepower, 10,000 RPM, redline, manual transmission. What are we talking about? We're talking about engagement. We're talking about driver's car. And then you get to the weight. 1,764 pounds is the targeted weight. Now, I didn't have a scale or graph out to kind of figure out how many cars weigh that much in a grand scheme of sport, compact, fun cars. So they gave me a little bit of information. It's 500 pounds lighter than the NA Miata. Craziness, okay? I don't even know what a Lotus Elise weighs. Maybe it might be a little bit less, but 500 pounds lighter than an NA Miata is crazy. 1,100 pounds lighter than a Subaru BRZ is absurdity. This is called power to weight ratio, kids. Whenever you want to know about people talking about horsepower and driver's cars and engagement and how it feels, and then you hear stories about the guy Tuthill who made that like 11,000 RPM 911. It was lightweight carbon fiber body, and the video of people driving it are like, this thing is just incredibly engaging. It feels crazy. You can feel all the senses. You can feel the motor. You can feel the chassis. You can feel the wheels, the tires. So all of that feeling that we get, that people love driver's cars, this is literally what that's going to be. Now, here's the problem. It's only 150 units. Each of them costs $375,000. That's a lot of bread. And most people are going to say, ain't no way I'm giving you almost $400,000 for a 4-cylinder with 300 horsepower. And then I'm going to say, yo, CarQuicks, last week you said $161,000 for an Evo was absurd. You talking about almost 3 times as much for a 4-cylinder Ford? But, I mean, this is like Singer level of restoration, modification, modernization into one of the classic cars like Escort, MK1 RS. I mean, this is something special. This is similar to if they took like, what could they else look at these? We got the Ford RS, we got the Cosworth one. That's like taking a Subaru 22B and saying we're going to start reproducing them and we're going to modernize them and make them even more current to today as far as power goes. I mean, this is a driver's car. Now, the teaser they showed on the video was just a render of what it's going to look like, but knowing that they have the approval from Ford with VIN numbers, with the accurate blueprinted body that they're recreating, I mean, it's going to look pretty much dead on like the render that they have. I think the idea is fire. I think there should be more cars that come out that kind of go back to the past, modernize them, pull them forward. Now, I'm not saying each one needs to be $375,000. I do wish there was a path of like $50,000, restored cars. Maybe you don't have crazy power. We don't need a 10,000 RPM red line 4-cylinder on every single car. I'm just saying it'd be cool to start seeing some old models get brought to the forefront in the beginning. Like I've said before, like for Nissan is struggling. Listen, you go back to the catacombs of your library where you keep all the boxes of old paperwork and documents. Grab the 240SX box, right? Reproduce the car exactly like you did from 89 to like 94, okay? And just say, we're doing a pre-order batch. We're going to make 10,000 original 240s. And we're going to price each of them at $35,000. And yes, that sounds crazy. 0 miles, OG, original, everything. I'm telling you, do that for a couple models. You be back in the green. You be back in black. You'll make some money. I'm not saying it's going to save the company, but you definitely going to go out with a bang if you're going to go out. You definitely will if you start doing stuff like that, especially if you take the Silvias, you bring over some S13s and 14s. Oh, man. Money in the bank. Now, talking about another car. This is going to, I'm really interested, and I'm going to segue into something else that happened during the week too. But I'm interested in, this is another electric car. I know it's an electric car heavy episode. What can I say? It's part of the automotive industry, the news. It is what it is. There is BMW's first electric M car is coming out. Now, BMW, I'm guilty of this too. They've been designing cars, and when you first see them, I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening? I'm not saying every single thing looks better in person. I will give the G80 M3 its flowers, saying in person, it has looked better, especially from the community of aftermarket modifications. I've seen some incredibly fire M3s. I'm not saying that for every single thing. Some of the SUVs, like the X4 Coupe, I mean, I just don't get it. I don't even get how you walk to a dealership and you're like, yeah, that's the one right there. I'm going to look at that on my driveway and be quite happy with my purchase. But we're talking about the M3. So the first all-electric M3 is coming out. And BMW released a video that I was watching, which is really interesting video. So if you're interested in kind of knowing more, some people are probably like, no, next. But if you're interested in knowing what their thought process is when making this car, there's a video for episode 1 talking about engineering an electric M3, like what it takes to make an engaging electric car. The problems and issues they have with doing that because cars are getting complicated. There's more controls, there's more things, and electric cars kind of isolated drivers. So all this ultimate driver machine and M division performance that they're used to delivering on cars that have chassis and engines and all these things is much harder to recreate in an electric car. But they showed a camouflage version of what this is supposed to look like that has their new design language, which is called, like, I say new class. It's spelled NEUEKLASSE. New class A? That's what it sounds like to me. But they showed renders, they showed concept cars as a design language. And I talked about it probably 10, 20, 30 podcasts ago. And I said, hey, if this is the language they're going, it is better than the gigantic grills that we have been getting. It is very much cleaner, it's much better than the current design as far as being clean and immediately being appeasing to the eyes. Now, I don't know if it's going to necessarily turn out that way when you apply it to a full production car, because concept cars have some elements of design that just never make it to a production car. So then all of a sudden, what looks sharp and angular and aggressive and cool and futuristic turns into pedestrian, compromised. It looks kind of cool. I got to see it in person design. That's what ends up happening. So the point, they made a video talking about how hard it is going to be to build this car. They said that they're not separating M3s, the ICE-powered ones, from the electric ones. He had a quote saying M3 is a promise, it's not an engine, which is actually pretty cool quote. And it makes a lot of sense because that is the point. The M3 wasn't dictated by the engine as far as what it can do. It's always been a performance standard of a sports sedan. That's just what it's been. So there will be ICE-powered versions. They're still making those, and they're making this all-electric one. They're matching the current gas engines, whatever configuration they're going with forward, to match any ICE mandates from Europe and the US to keep making combustion engines. So they're doing what I've said almost every other company failing should copy. And that is, if you're thinking about the future, spend your time now introducing an all-electric M3. Continue making the ICE one. That's where your bread and butter is going to be for now. Continue developing the electric one. And then when these worlds collide and they merge, when we finally make this transition or partly lean a little bit more to the electric side, you might be a generation or two in where you've already figured out how to make it engaging, where those that are coming from a combustion engine M3 kind of are like, I can give this a chance now. That's a smart move to do. You're doing both at the same time. So the video talks about their development process, just episode 1. I'm excited to see episode 2 because hearing what the engineers are talking about and what they're doing, even the preview of the prototype in camouflage, I think looks good. Like, the rear of it was aggressive. It had flares. The front of it had a very clean, simplified look. I think, personally, that this might look really good when they're done. I don't think it's going to look bad. Now, how will it perform? That's a good question. I'm just intrigued because the way they were talking in the video, at least, they understood the mountain that they're trying to climb as far as getting people excited about an electric car compared to their world-renowned sports sedans that have traditional ICE engines. So if you get a chance, check out that YouTube video because I think it does give a good glimpse of engineers and people understanding the task at hand, still delivering what we know and love, and then looking at how to implement those ideologies into the future. It's a cool concept, a cool idea for those videos because it at least gives you some insight into these companies, because a lot of times stuff just comes out and you just don't know how it's going to perform. Similar to like the Charger EV, like the embargo lifted on those and everybody was talking about them. I watched a bunch of videos. I don't really know if I got a clear consensus on what everybody thought when it comes to the Charger EV. From my perspective of looking at the videos, they're like, it's good for what it is, but none of the videos to me showed like broad excitement. Like, even when they were doing like acceleration tests, they were like hitting the gas. There was a crazy delay when it came from gas pedal pressed to electric power delivered, which is odd because that usually be instantaneous because of instant torque. But even when they're driving it at speed, I mean, I saw a few videos, they're just like, I mean, it's fast, but it doesn't, it kind of looked like it was just quick. But then again, you realize 670 horsepower and 0 to 63.3 seconds sounds exciting on paper, but you're hauling around 5,000 plus pounds. So that still plays a role in how the car feels and moves and handles. And I don't remember getting like overly glowing reviews of the car. Like, I don't remember getting like this, hey, they actually did it. This can be a viable option for a lot of people. I'm still going to watch a few more that I haven't finished and I have saved that I want to watch, because I want to see more people driving them to see like what it means, because I think it's a fairly big deal. If the Charger EV can even be somewhat decent or somewhat successful for Dodge, at least shows them that they have something to keep working on, while they probably circle back around to kind of save this company and bring back some more traditional muscle car ideas back, maybe back to the Hemi. I don't think so, but let's just say the inline turbo 6 comes back, and but that gets delivered, and then people really start talking about the car and what the future could hold. Now, getting into craziness, Aston Martin has announced their Valhalla. Now, I talked about this again 10, 15, 20 podcasts ago. Okay, I've been getting at it. So the Valhalla is not the Valkyrie. The Valkyrie is the insane basically F1 car with a body on it on the road. The Valhalla is their next supercar in the lineup. Like I think it's called the Super Series. It's below the Valhalla. Okay, the Valhalla is at the top. We're coming right below it. Altogether, 1,064 horsepower, twin-turbo V8, plug-in hybrid, 811 foot-pounds of torque, 3 electric motors. We got 2 in the rear, radial flux E-motors is what they call them. We got, 2 in the front, and then a third integrated into the transmission. Even though 2 in the front seems kind of weird, but that's probably the one and the third one drives both rear wheels, and then you have all-wheel drive in the front. That's probably what's going on. By itself, the motor makes 817 horsepower. That's just a twin-turbo V8 by itself. You add in the batteries and the motor, and you get a 6-kilowatt battery. I don't know what the range was if you were just charging, because there is a pure EV mode. But if any of these supercars, you're talking about somewhere up to 20 miles on full pure EV. Kind of get to the grocery store, turn around, and come home. Altogether, 3,649 pounds, which is kind of heavy. I know it's all carbon fiber construction. I can't remember what the F80 and the W1 weighed. They might be similar in weight because you're talking about hybrid systems and batteries is what always adds the weight. Push rod front suspension, derived from F1, multi-link in the rear, giant 16-inch carbon ceramic brakes. We got 15 inches in the rear. And there's an interesting form of regenerative, I can't even speak right now, regenerative braking. Okay, we got one it's called Cat B and Cat A. So when you're braking, it basically allows the car to regenerate the brakes to I'm going to read the article on this and get this completely correct, because I remember reading, it's like, that's interesting that there's 2 forms of regenerative braking. And let me find that. So while the driver applies the brakes, Cat B uses the front motors to slow the car down to add the energy back to the battery. So when you brake, the front motors slow the car down, that energy goes back to the batteries. When you get off the throttle, when you get off the brake, you get off the throttle, let's say you're driving hard, you get off the gas, Cat A applies regeneration to the rear E-motor. So it's like 2 forms. So depending on how you're driving, and I guess if you're on the track, if you're thinking about heavy braking, accelerating, off throttle, heavy braking. So you're getting this system that's kind of going back and forth between how it's generating that energy and sending it back to the batteries in the system. I think personally, that's what makes these plug-in hybrids and this electric thing fun. That's like the interesting technology part about it to me. I think that when you add those things in, it basically shows what the technology can do from a performance standpoint. And speaking about that all pure EV mode, it is only it's about 9 miles on pure EV up to 80 miles an hour. So like I said, really just basic running errands somewhere. You're just going to grab some food real quick. I don't know why you got to grab the Valhalla to go grab Chick-fil-A. But let's just say that's the only car in the driveway and you got to go over there and you don't want to go over there with loud motors and everything. You can go in electric and come back home. Now, what else do we have? There's 4 driving modes: Sport, Sport Plus, Race, Pure EV. I almost feel like at this stage in the game when it comes to driving modes, that's self-explanatory. Sport, cool. Couple, change suspension, harden it a little bit more reactive when it comes to throttle and braking and the way the transmission, runs, because that's an 8-speed dual clutch transmission. Sport Plus ups it again. Race, obviously, it's, time to go all the way full tilt. And then you got Pure EV. Aerodynamics is the name of the game in this realm, because between the F80 and the W1, both of those are generating crazy amounts of downforce at high speed. So this has 1,323 pounds of downforce between 149 miles an hour and 217 miles an hour. I don't know if that's better than what the W1 was doing or if the F80 was, but it sounds close. And the reason I'm bringing up those 2 cars is because I saw a few articles saying like this was a competitor to the F80 and the W1. I feel like yes. I almost feel like I thought the Valkyrie was what they were aiming for and I was looking at price point, honestly. If the F80 and W1 are in this $2-3 million range, the Valkyrie being at $4 million and so forth, I'm like, okay, that's kind of in the same range, but maybe the Valhalla which is supposed to come in at about $1 million, is the one that's supposed to compete, similar to how Porsche made the 918. And if we're going off price, theirs was under what LaFerraris and P1s were costing at that time. So given the specs and the performance, which is funny, there's a little outlier here that I hope happens when all these cars come out. So we got the Valhalla, F80, W1. You got the ZR1. And the reason I mentioned that because somebody's going to read that 1,064 horsepower, see $1 million price tag on Aston Martin, and immediately they will talk about the ZR1 and the bargain that it is for the performance it has. So what I'm hoping happens is that we get all these cars together on the track and they actually let it compete against something like a ZR1. I don't know if it would ever happen because it sounds crazy to say this, but there's egos involved when it comes to these manufacturers and their cars and their babies and what they've developed and they've charged their owners multiple millions of dollars of. I can see Ferrari not allowing anybody to test a Valhalla W1 and then throw in a Corvette into the mix to see what it can do. I just think it would be cool because you can kind of see how far Chevrolet's come. And Chevrolet don't play. They've won Le Mans. They've won motorsports. It's not like Ferrari hasn't seen them C6Rs if they were running around on the track. So it's not like they haven't seen them compete with them on the motorsports level. I just hope that we do get that comparison video. ZR1, F80, W1, Valhalla. I want to see those because, and the ZR1, I'm sure when it does officially come out, which would be much sooner than us ever seeing an F80 being tested or a W1 or even Valhalla, they're going to put the ZR1 up against everything. Guaranteed. They're going to put that up against GT3 RSs. They're putting that up against Astons. They're putting that up against Viper. They're putting up against anything and everything just to see how far Chevrolet came with that car and that Corvette till now. They did the same thing with the Z06, but now with this much power, they're definitely going to check it. I think it would be fair to do. I think it would be cool. And I think it's part of what's missing in some of these comparison videos is kind of to throw out an outlier. Throw in something in there that you would never expect. You got multi-million-dollar cars. You got $4 million cars. And here we go with this probably under $200,000 car. And you're like, what is going on? Hey, throw in the Mustang GTD while you're at it. Just throw it all in. Let's just see what these cars can do when they're given the same track, same day, same driver, or same set of drivers. And let's see what they can do. Now, before I head out of here, GR Corolla updates. Not for me. A good friend of mine. I spent some time putting on an EOS Extreme online store, front lip kit, side skirts, and it looked really good. We shot a quick little video. Video's doing well. People asking questions about it. Even got a shout out from the company. Must have saw what I did and liked it, which is cool. I don't really want to run the front lip, even though after seeing it in person, it does look good. So I'm a fan of how it looks after seeing it in person, seeing him put it on. Especially like the side skirts and simplicity of them and the front lip. I was like, hey, I'm a fan of this as well. So I'm not mad at how it looks in person. I wouldn't personally add it to mine, I don't think. I have some other ideas that I want to do that I'm hoping that I'm working with somebody to kind of plan that out. Other things that are next are still the same. I said last time, cooling and tuning and all that's going to come. I actually do have something cool coming for the Sienna. So there's another company that reached out to me and wants me to review something that I can't really put on the GR Corolla. And I talked about that. And it's more of like, they call it an AI box, but really it allows you to go from like wired CarPlay to wireless CarPlay and add some other features in there that I'm going to put on the minivan, the Sienna, because that one only uses wired CarPlay or Android Auto. So I'm going to test out that to see how that one performs and then just do a review and a video on it and just add it to the list of things I like checking out with cars. And then I have a review idea that I'm going to start doing on the Sienna. Kind of, like I said, work my way. I'm going to inch my way into the reviews and the press cars. Okay, it's going to take some time, but I got time. Nothing but time. I'm here breathing. I got time. So we're going to figure it out. Shoot a little video, see how it does, and keep going forward. But until then, do as you wish, do as you may. This was Cameron Biggs, your host again. This is the CarQuicks Podcast. We got another one coming next week. We're at episode 75. I'm 25 away from the 100 episode. I don't know what I'm going to do for it. I definitely should start planning. I'm going to be there sooner than I think. Sometime in the beginning of the new year, first quarter, I'm gonna hit 100 episodes, and maybe I live stream it. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I give something away. I don't know. It's a milestone for me, and I'm gonna be excited about it. I might even give myself some balloons. Who knows? Okay, I might do something. Until then, I'll see y'all around. Peace.